afternoon, everyone. Hello, welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. My name is LaCorey Meadows. I serve as a member of the Board of Trustees. I also serve as the Director of OSU Extension here in Franklin County. Today's topic is finding innovation and opportunity in unexpected places. It's brought to us with support from Deloitte and Improving Enterprises and in partnership with Rev 1 Ventures. Won't you please help me to thank them? Okay, now let's give a warm welcome to Chad Palmer, who serves as the Audit Managing Director at Deloitte, and Chad will introduce our speakers.
Thank you, LaCorey. Hello, everyone. My name is Chad Palmer. I am a Managing Director with Deloitte here in Columbus. And at Deloitte, we're very proud to participate in and to sponsor the Columbus Metropolitan Club, especially at an event like today's. Deloitte helps organizations to innovate, to transform, and to lead. These are things that are fundamental to us at Deloitte. And we're working with venture capital firms, emerging growth companies here in Central Ohio, firms like Drive Capital, who are doing things that are fundamental to us. So today, we look forward to hearing from an innovator, a leader, someone who's made a career out of identifying people, businesses, and ideas, and helping them to develop those into the next big thing. And now he's focused his talents and efforts right here in Central Ohio, here in Columbus and in the Midwest. So as someone who grew up in Central Ohio, and spent most of my professional career here, I know that those people, ideas, and businesses are out there waiting to flourish. So with that, please help me welcome co-founder and partner at Drive Capital, Mark Kvamme. And I think Mark's going to go ahead and present, and then he'll sit down with Kenny McDonald, the President and Chief Economic Officer at Columbus 2020 for a Q&A afterward.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I got to tell you, I see Rich Langdale in the audience. If someone can figure out a system where you bring your computer in and it automatically works with the AV, we went through 4 computers, 1, 2, 3, 4 computers, multiple different connectors, multiple different cables, and we finally got it to work. So we could make $1 billion, Rich, right here in Columbus. No, $10 billion if we do this. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you, spend the next 20 minutes talking about what I see around the corner. There's a lot of opportunities, but quite frankly, some scary things too. But whenever you predict the future, you got to be careful. Because I love this quote from Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM. He said, "I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers." He was a little bit wrong. In this room, there's about 300 computers. They're called our cell phones today. So I want to give you a little history of kind of how I've seen Silicon Valley. I was very fortunate to grow up in Silicon Valley, and my parents are native San Franciscans, and my dad started a company called National Semiconductor. National Semiconductor was one of the first consumer electronics companies. I'll never forget driving down 101, and my dad pulls out the calculator on that. That's the first one-chip calculator that allowed you to do, adding, subtracting, and so on and so forth in a digital form. They sold it for very little and made a ton of them. My dad loves to tell the story of visiting the computational capital of the United States, Dayton, Ohio. And he came to Dayton and he said to all these guys, hey, all these adding machine guys, NCR, Diebold, this little chip here is going to replace all those gears. And they said, no, it's not. Well, it did. And so from that, he created, calculator watches and digital alarm clocks and all kinds of funny things. Well, that was as I was growing up, and then at the ripe old age of 19, I was able to join Apple Computer. This is actually a picture of my first computer, the Apple. Actually, that's an Apple IIe, not an Apple II Plus. My father actually saved my original computer, and at Christmas this year gave me my original computer back for Christmas. I cannot wait to program it. I'm going to have some fun. Anyway. But, computers were different in those ages. I mean, they were personal computers. Boy, that's a crazy close, Carrie. I mean, come on. Okay, they were personal computers. They were single systems. You had mainframes. You had minis. You had then microcomputers. And that's all you had. There was no internet. There was no networking. I mean, when I started Apple Computer, we all had our personal computers, right? Networking was taking a floppy drive out and handing it to your buddy. Big data was 144 kilobits, 1,000 kilobits. I mean, when I started Apple Computer, my first computer actually had cassette tape as its storage mechanism. I was so excited to get the disk too. So in 1987, John Sculley, the then CEO, created a very famous video of its time. So this is 1987. He created a video called the Knowledge Navigator. This is the beauty of YouTube. I'm going to play you this video from 1987, and we're going to talk about the technologies that he projected to happen right over the horizon. So let me see here if I can do this. There we go. Are we getting sound? Sound. There we go. So this was actually done for an educational conference. So this guy is the professor. You'll see something that now is called the iPad or the Android tablet on his desk. There's one technology we still haven't been able to invent. Maybe one day we'll be able, we're getting close, flexible displays, but look at this, a foldable display. But if you think, watch this video here,
Your
1987.
research team in Guatemala, just checking in. Robert Jordan, a second semester junior, requesting a second
Remember, this is
extension
before
on the term
video on
paper.
computers, before
And your mother
graphical
reminding you
interface,
about your father.
Surprise
before a
birthday
touch
party
screen.
next Sunday.
Today, you have a faculty lunch at 12 o'clock. You need to take Kathy to the airport by 2. You have a lecture at 4:15 on deforestation in the Amazon rainforest.
Right. Let me see the lecture notes from last semester.
So voice recognition, Alexa.
No, that's not enough. I need to review more recent literature. Pull up all the new articles I haven't read yet.
So this is the
Journal
internet.
articles
Remember, this is
only?
before the internet. Pull up all the
fine.
articles
Your
written
friend
on
Jill
this
Gilbert
subject.
has published an article about deforestation in the
So
Amazon.
I'm not going to play that much longer,
And it's
but
a-
basically you fast forward about 27, 28 years, and we have that today. Okay, we have FaceTime, we have iPads, we have Alexa, we have voice connections. I mean, think about it. It really hasn't happened until the last couple of years. And for example, this is actually an investment in a company we have up in let's see, it starts with a Michigan, no, NM, whatever. Okay, here we go. There's a company called Notion that's putting voice recognition and AI on top of your email.
Alexa, ask Notion if anybody's waiting on me.
You have 2 waiting messages, including one from Ace Bureaus about can I buy you a coffee?
Who introduced us?
You were introduced to Ace Bureaus by Pete Decker,
So this is shipping
contributor
today.
at CNBC on June 3rd in a message about keep in touch. What would you like to do now?
Delete.
Okay, I've deleted it. Your final waiting message is from Wags about tomorrow.
Read it.
Wags said, I have a desk for you. Be here by 7 a.m. tomorrow and it's yours.
Yes!
What would you like to do now?
Respond, count me in.
All right, I've sent count me in to
So,
Wags.
I mean, you get the basic
Would you
idea
like to
now.
know
So
what
now
else
when you
is
have
new?
AI sitting
Yeah,
on top of your email
You
with
have
voice
2 new important
recognition,
messages,
you can interact with your
including one from
email
Carol.
while you're doing other things. So let's talk about what's happened over the last 35 years. The last 35 years, starting with Intel, I always look at things in stacks. Starting with Intel, the microprocessor in 1968, that begot the personal computer. The personal computer created computer networking created the internet created internet applications. If you just take these 5 companies alone, and I was fortunate to work at Apple and Sequoia where I worked, funded Cisco, funded Google, when you actually see these, just those 5 companies plus Amazon created $2 trillion of market value in that short period of time. That's just those 5 companies. Now, look at this. See these products and companies. So cloud computing, the iPhone, the iPad, Android. These are things that did not exist 10 years ago or were in beta. In this last 10-year period, they created $1.5 trillion of market value. Now, most of those companies, other than Amazon, are based in the Bay Area. Now you know why the housing prices are so crazy. There's so much money going into them. So the thesis I want to kind of shift gears here is this. I have been very fortunate to see a lot of change in the last 35 years. And just from when I started Apple Computer, I had the floppy disk. My CubeMate had a 5 megabyte hard drive. Okay, it was about this big. Okay, when he started it up, the lights dimmed. It literally sounded like an aircraft carrier. That's 2 photos today. So in that time, then we created Knowledge Navigator, and we looked at the future. So now here we are in 2017, and let's think about something this is a video that was published about 6 months ago. It's a Google company called Boston Dynamics. And this is where we are going. So this is a fully autonomous bipedal robot, okay, that can walk, that can see. Now, this thing costs like $600,000 today, but it can do some remarkable things. This, it's so funny. If you're not in the computer business, to see a bipedal robot walking on an uneven, icy surface, the amount of compute that's going on right now is mind-boggling. There's video, there's sound here. Can you hear the sound? This coming up spot always cracks me up. How many times have we done this where you kind of, whoa? How many of you seen this video? Yeah. So what's amazing about this is part of the future. So the scary part is right here. So imagine, I don't know if anybody here from the Bureau of Workmen's Comp, but there's going to be far less worker comps claims in the future by these folks. Look at what they're doing. Able to analyze, see the box, put the box on the shelf. This next little demonstration cracks me up. This guy with a hockey stick, I guess the robot doesn't get mad, but he picks it up. I think in the future, the robot's going to say, I'm going to kill the man in the hockey stick. Yeah. So again, you get the basic idea here. I don't know what to call it. It, he, she, whatever. You can just see, so this is a demonstration. Now what's different between this and Knowledge Navigator video, Knowledge Navigator video was done completely with video. He's really gonna hurt the guy on the hockey stick now. This is Terminator to me. This is the scariest part when he does this to me. It's like this. I'm going to get up and kill you. But basically, so imagine now you're in 1987 and you saw this change over that 30-year period of time. And this is, imagine now with this technology where all this is going. And just to prove a point, it was not too long ago, it was in September of 2012 that Elon Musk at SpaceX said, I'm going to take a rocket ship, I'm going to throw it up into space, I'm going to deploy satellites, and I'm going to land that rocket ship back on a floating boat in the middle of the ocean. Everyone thought he was nuts. Literally, NASA thought he was nuts. It was September 21st, 2012, where that rocket went up 1 meter and down 1 meter. In just 3.5 years later, he accomplished that. In fact, they did it again last week, right? Now they are in regular basis throwing rockets up into space and putting them down. This is all done with machine learning. So think about the amount of change that is capable in that short period of time. So what I'd like to do is talk to you now about what I think is going to be the next 10 years. And I actually gave this talk a couple days ago to a whole bunch of investors. And one guy thinks this is all going to happen in 5 years. And it's actually some pretty dramatic things for everyone here in the audience. But first, I think there's a positive and a negative way of looking at all this change. And the big part of this is around artificial intelligence. This is a friend of mine, Sebastian Thrun. Sebastian is the inventor of the driverless car. He won the DARPA challenge. He then went to Google X, created the Google driverless car. And there's two parts of this piece I like. AI will affect 75% of the American workforce. Okay, 75% of us do highly repetitive office work. Many lawyers, accountants, sorry, Deloitte. Pilots, drivers. Learning will be key. The winners will leverage AI to unfold human creativity. So he really believes this is going to allow us to do things like we've never done before. Now, another Google fellow, again, a guy named Ray Kurzweil, looks at it a little differently. He says, within a few decades, machine intelligence will surpass human intelligence, leading to the singularity. Change so rapid and profound, it represents a rupture in the fabric of human history. I believe, and I was talking to our governor about this a couple weeks ago, I believe there's a possibility in the next 10 years, due to AI and machine learning, that 20 million jobs will evaporate from the United States. Okay? Think about this. In the last 7 years, 20 million jobs have evaporated from the planet in manufacturing because of automation. By the way, 10 million of those were in China. Okay? This is having a huge impact in what we do, because artificial intelligence is the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. So anything that requires human intelligence in a rote fashion will be replaced. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. For example, driverless cars we all hear about today. Number one profession in America, driver. 17 million drivers in the United States. How is that impacted by autonomous vehicles? So now let's look at the next stack, as I like to call it. I think in the future, instead of going from my computer to personal computer and so on, I think this is the next stack, and we're beginning to build this. The first is the Internet of Things. All these devices are going to be connected and all going to be talking to each other. I mean, we're all connected by our phones, and we could be tweeting here, we could be emailing, we could be texting, we could be doing whatever we want to do. We're fully connected. Then out of that, we're going to get data science. And the data science is the connection of all that data together. On top of that, you have machine learning. Machine learning is taking that data science and actually providing insight on that data science. And then we go to artificial intelligence, and then we go to robots. So let's talk about that. Internet of Things. In about 2012, we surpassed more connected things on the internet than connected people. Right now, it's approximated about 30 billion, 40 billion devices are now connected. How many of you have a Nest? About 20 of you. So a Nest is a connected device. A Fitbit is a connected device. There's tons of this. I don't know how you bought a new car recently. I recently just picked up a new Chevy Suburban. It is a connected device. It's got Wi-Fi. It's got LTE. It talks to OnStar. They know what's going on. That is a connected device. Everything is becoming connected. Pretty soon, everything, we're talking about how Columbus, Kenny and I can talk about this a little bit, how Columbus won smart cities. A big chunk of the smart city grant is about connecting all our lights, all our roads, all our vehicles, connecting all that stuff together. And that's going to have a big impact on society, everywhere from your home to industry to transportation to manufacturing. All these things are going to be talking to each other. Okay, they're going to be thinking and moving and evaluating how you're doing things. So once you have all this data, okay, and we've seen it with the internet, you have to figure out how to connect it all. Data science is the next thing. And I believe we're in the process of a fundamental software change in data science. We are going from where the data was the atomic unit that was important. I believe we're going from the data being the importance to the relationship between the data being important. So it's an example of Monster.com versus LinkedIn. Monster was just a whole bunch of great resumes, and you got to go search all these resumes to find somebody. With LinkedIn, what Reid Hoffman said is, no, I'm going to connect all those people. I'm going to show you the relationships, and how I get to Dan Tassett is, through Ken McDonald's, through Dan Tassett is through Frederick here. And the relationship, the fact that Kenny and I are friends, and Kenny's a friend with Dan, and Dan's a friend with Frederick, that's how I understand knowledge. I think that's how it's going to happen. And imagine when everything's connected and I understand the relationships between all those things, it's going to have a dramatic impact. So when you look at data science, it's the 4 V's. Think about it this way. One is volume. If you're going to have billions and billions and billions of connected devices, it's going to create ungodly amounts of data. It blows my mind that this jump drive, I remember I was talking about a 5 megabyte drive. This is a 128 gig jump drive. Every time I see this stuff, it blows my mind. On top of that, you got variety. There's all kinds of different, there's picture data, there's this data, there's that data. My son is starting a machine vision company right now where you don't need RFID anymore. You have all these little cameras all over the place, and it actually, in real time, figures out where all your inventory is. Pretty cool, doing a big a pilot down at a warehouse in LA. The velocity of the data is going to be coming in at unbelievable amounts of data, and the veracity, the uncertainty, you're not going to know what it is. You're going to have to figure it all out, okay? Once you have all those things, what happens? You have machine learning. What is an autonomous car? An autonomous car is just a machine that learns. It learns how to drive. So when I drive, I make mistakes, I become a better driver. When Kenny makes mistakes, and he becomes a better driver. When I saw Doug Price back here somewhere. When Doug Price drives, he sometimes becomes a better driver. But what happens is we all learn separately. With machine learning, we all learn together. The mistakes I make, Doug learns. The mistakes Doug makes, Kenny and I learn. We all learn together. I must say I had a surreal experience in Phoenix Monday. I was speaking at a conference down there. And I did what everyone does. I ordered my Uber, got in my Uber, and I'm driving down. We're at a stoplight. And right next to me pulls up an autonomous vehicle Uber, a driverless Uber. And the expression on my Uber's driver's face was priceless. He's just like this and like this. It was fantastic. Anyway, so machine learning is all about teaching machines how to do it. And they can learn a lot more rapidly than we can. In fact, they're proving now this year. A lot of people talk about, oh, well, I like to drive and, this is never going to happen, all the regulations. Well, here's an interesting thing I read a couple weeks ago. What's an unintended consequence of driverless cars? Driverless cars now are proven to be significantly more safe than human drivers. You know what the number one issue people are worried about? Organ donors. Because most organ donorship is done by people getting in car and motorcycle accidents. So what happens when we don't have accidents anymore? We don't have any more organs. It's going to be an issue. It's a it's an unintended consequence, but I actually think that's one of the reasons why autonomous vehicles are pretty soon they're going to mandate in most cities. I predict, here's a crazy prediction for you, Kenny, wherever Kenny is, 15 years-ish, 12 years, maybe 10 years, you will not be able to drive a car that's not autonomous in downtown Columbus. Just think about that. Okay. The other thing about robots is robots do things that a lot of us don't want to do. This is actually a fellow that built some robots for a greenhouse down in Florida. He says, our experience with robots have been fantastic. They're doing the jobs no one wants to do. And they do it all the time in and out. On top of that, we have artificial intelligence. The beginning is Watson. Many of you have heard about Watson. The thing that was really interesting, Watson's just very early on. I'm not going to play this video because of time. But all artificial intelligence is feeding the machine knowledge. A human feeds that machine knowledge, and the machine's able to compute it a lot more quickly. But what's interesting is even Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, who's got Google Deep Learning, he can't believe how fast it's coming. This was him just speaking at the Davos conference last week. This stuff is changing so rapidly, it is hard to keep understanding of where it's going. And here's the slide that's the one that I just recently talked about. AI is already impacting jobs and will continue to impact jobs. This is an estimate from the World Bank that believe, for example, in the United States, 47% of jobs will be impacted by AI. Think about that. I mean, most of the rote things we do will be impacted by AI. And we can talk about that later. I think this, in the next 5 years, we're going to see the amount of change will blow everyone away in this room. And last but not least are robotics. Robotics are happening. How many have a Roomba? Yeah, these are all the early adopters in the room. In Stanford Shopping Center, they have a security robot. Actually, they had a big issue a couple of months ago. It actually ran over a kid. But, and then we talked about the bipedal robot. And as was Chad mentioned, we at Drive are investing in companies. I won't go into that. But I wouldn't be here and an Apple guy if I didn't do a Steve Jobsism. Okay, Jobsism, I don't know how to pronounce that. One more thing. Sorry, Elon, driverless passenger drones will be the vehicle disruption of the future. I think Larry Page is investing hundreds of millions of dollars of his own personal capital to create the flying car. And a friend of mine, Sebastian Thrun, is running one of those companies that was recently talked about, and they even showed it at CES. What's going to happen is you're going to be going down High Street, and there's going to be 5 layers of High Street. Okay, and you're going to have all these drones going in all these different directions, and there'll be passenger drones, and there'll be package drones from the AWS, from the Amazon warehouse. This is all happening, okay, and it's happening now. Now, let's just shift real quickly to Columbus. Columbus, please don't be San Francisco, okay? San Francisco is basically through a lot of regulation and policy and stupidity. They just recently, the reason why I saw that Uberless driverless car in Phoenix was they got kicked out of San Francisco. They said San Francisco was putting so many regulations on them, they said, okay, goodbye, San Francisco. Why is Uberless driverless car in Pittsburgh? It's because Pittsburgh's mayor and the city council said, this is the future. They now got 400 autonomous vehicle engineers working in Pittsburgh to make this happen. And thank goodness for the great work that Kenny and Alex and all those guys are doing at the Columbus Partnership. And Mayor Ginther, we were able to win Smart City. And I got to tell you, if I look at what's going on in Columbus, I think one of the most seminal events that we have seen is the winning of the Smart City grant. That is a major, major, major thing here for the city of Columbus. We need to take that and we need to extend that. Now, and there are multiple different pieces of it, and Kenny knows all the particulars, but we have got to figure out how to take ourselves from this, thinking about atoms to thinking about bits and thinking about how we're going to move all this stuff going forward. So with that, I'll thank you very much, and Kenny's going to come up. Thank you. I think so.
All right.
Taking lots of
So,
water.
how about another round of applause for Mark? He got here 6 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, no, 6 years ago this month.
And he's been pushing Ohio to think about these things in terms of our economy from the day he got here. I think I met you the second day you were here.
Yeah.
And he was pushing and prodding. That's what we need.
I thought you had an Ohio accent, but I guess you
No, I don't. So some of this stuff is pretty scary.
It is.
And we've got people that care a lot about our economy and our communities in the room, and they lead organizations. One of the questions I have is, what's the call to action? Let's assume that everything you say is moving forward, and we believe it is. What can you take home and start to implement and think about in your own organization?
Well, I think it's two things. I think we're moving from a world, and some of the folks from OSU may not like this, but we're moving from a world of the 4-year degree or 6-year degree. I learn my stuff and I go off into the world and I go do my job, whether it's, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, or whatever it is. We're going to a world where everything's constantly changing. And I think this whole disruption is going to happen first in our education system and then our corporations. We're going to have to figure out how to constantly retrain people. And it's got to be done very, very cost effectively. Let me give you an example. We had a woman join us at Drive who had a 4-year degree, and she had a degree in psychology. And she graduates from the university, couldn't find a job. And so she became our receptionist. And so great, very smart, so on. And she says, Mark, you guys are doing all this computer stuff. That's really, really cool. How do I do that? And fortunate, being a shameless promoter of one of our companies, Udacity, at Udacity you can get a nano degree in a couple of months for about $400, $400 or $500. And so I said to her, you know what you should do? I'll pay for it, because I do it as research. I'll pay for your nano degree in Ruby on Rails, and I think it was Java. I forgot which the two she took. Anyway, it took her about 4 months to graduate. Cost me, I think, $800. And now she's a software programmer at a local startup. And so making a lot of money and very successful. I think that the thing is, we're going to have to figure out how to constantly retrain people, retain them very cost effectively and very efficiently and very fast. Because guys and gals, this is happening today. This is happening today.
Which industry, if you look around 270,
yeah,
and you think about the Fortune 500 we have and the large employers we have now around Columbus, which industry do you think is going to be most disrupted by all of the changes?
I mean, I think it's just a question of time. I think over time, all of them will be disruptive. I think the ones early term that will be disrupted are folks that in the retail business. You look at, I mean, my understanding is 30% of all retail last Christmas was done through Amazon. Amazon uses, they have 200,000 robots in their warehouses. I mean, I mean, what they're doing, they're using data science, they're using all of that stuff. I understand, have 100 people in VR, where you literally put on, you shop in VR and you pick what you want, and then it arrives at your door in 2 hours. I think that whole area is going to be disrupted very quickly. I think anything in the knowledge economy will be very much disrupted.
Banking, insurance.
I think banking will be a little bit further down because it's dealing with money. I think insurance will be, I mean, we have an investment in a company called Root that's growing very, very rapidly that, you know, makes it much more cost effective and easy to have car insurance. No, I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, for example, it was just announced about a couple weeks ago, an insurance company in Japan fired all their underwriters and adjusters, and they replaced it all with AI because they figured out it was 95%. It was better, and they could actually process claims faster. So I think if you're a claims processor, an adjuster, an underwriter, beware.
In a few minutes, we're going to take audience questions, but I'm going to ask Mark, ask you to pause for a second and think about this. What headline or headlines do you want to see for Columbus in 2020? When we turn the clock in December 2019, what are the headlines we have in the Dispatch and Business First?
They're the most innovative city in America. It's easy.
I like it. What do you think?
And by the way, folks, I mean, we have the capability to do that. We have all the raw ingredients. We have the universities, we have the companies, we have the people, we have the cost of living, we have everything. We can do that. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for this man on the right and Jordan and Alex and Mary Ginther and a couple other guys, this smart city thing is, in my opinion, one of the most important things that's going to happen. I think we're going to look back at smart cities. I was awarded in 2016. We're going to look a decade from 2026 and say that is when Columbus became #1.
I love it. Andy gives me this statement. I'll try to read it verbatim. It is CMC's tradition to take audience questions. Please state your name, ask your question, and we thank you in advance for not making long editorial comments. Obviously, we've got a lot of on our mind. This is a great presentation. Let's proceed to the first question. Sir?
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. With all the connectiveness that you are forecasting, what do you see happening in the field of cybersecurity?
That's actually a very important question. I don't know if you saw I don't know if you know what a denial of service attack is when you have all the computers attack one website and the website goes down. Well, recently, how many of you have drop cams and Nests and all these connected devices? A hacker had figured out how to get all these things to do a denial of service attack to these things. It's a real issue. The thing I just don't quite understand, and I don't have an answer to. Most of this is state-sponsored. Imagine if Russia or China sent over, 15,000 people and raided our lands versus 15,000 bots over the internet. We'd kind of be upset and we may declare war. Why we do this and why we let this happen is amazing to me. And the thing that kind of both scares me and I wonder about is, we're stealing real stuff. Our money, our energy, a lot of stuff is in the bits that people are stealing. Your health records, it blows my mind that the Russians hacked the database that holds all the information for cleared human beings for cleared people in the spy agencies. It's pretty crazy. So it's a big issue, and it's war. There's no other way to put it. It's a cyber war. And it's being fought by people sitting behind massive machines, and it's not going to change.
Terrific. Richard Hood is my name. No, I'm sorry. Terrific presentation. Thank you, fellows. And Mark, appreciate your optimism about Columbus, but are we not being held back by our lack of free Wi-Fi for the whole city? and the connectivity that would help with, especially the less privileged who can't afford good connectivity now?
Well, no, I actually think we're worse than Kenya right now in connectivity. I think connectivity is a big, big issue. I know it's part of the Smart Cities Challenge, and I know that they're doing a lot of free, Wi-Fi and things like that. The only thing I would caution you on is Wi-Fi technologies, what now? I mean, the latest version is probably about 6 years old. We're getting real close to 5G, which is 5, what is it? I think it's 10 megabits, or I mean, 5G is way up there. I mean, so, and all the telephone companies will be able to provide that. Connectivity, people don't realize why did cell phones really take off was the invention actually of 4G, because 4G was the first technology that went through walls effectively. You ever notice when you're sometimes in a building or something and it's at 3G and it just doesn't work very well? Well, that's because you can't go through walls very easily. But 4G, you can go through most walls. 5Gs will take it to a whole nother level. And so I think you're going to get ubiquity either by, as you mentioned, Wi-Fi in those sorts of situations. But I'm a little bit more bullish on the telecommunications carriers to have 5G, and they're testing it right now. I think we should be all in Columbus and Ohio to be the leader. We have the ORNet, which is a spectacular thing. We can connect all these devices to the ORNet and move very fast.
Mindy Wright, given the rapid rate of change that you're forecasting, what advice do you have for job creation policies, whether they're locally or nationally?
Oh, no, I'm listening.
Now, I mean, if I was king, I'd create the Ohio Institute of Technology. I'd work with corporations to figure out which jobs are changing very, very quickly. I'd figure out a way to train people for $1,000 and just retrain. Kind of when Udacity, when we announced the autonomous vehicle, class, we had openings for 500 people a month because they actually program a driverless car. We had 25,000 applicants in about 2 hours from around the world. So I think it all comes down to education and job retraining. And if I am a company, I am going to be innovated against. I have got to figure out how do I take, for example, AT&T is a big partner with actually, let's use Google. Google's even a more modern company. Google's got a massive problem. Google's got a problem because they got a ton of web engineers. How many people are spending time on the web anymore? It's all on their phones. They got to retrain all their web engineers to become Android engineers. And after that, the Android engineers are going to be trained to be data scientists. So what you have to do is you have to look at that workforce as a very fluid thing. And I think the most innovative, I think Amazon is the best company at doing this. And I would look at what Amazon does. They're always looking forward. Look at the video, going back to what's going to be impacted. Look, there's a video online of the Amazon store. They have a store where there are no cashiers. There's nobody. You walk in, you pick, because you come in, you click with your Amazon Prime account, you click it on the turnstile, it lets you in. You go take all the food and you walk out. Because it's all done through beacons and all this technology. They're always thinking forward. And thank goodness, because of Kenny's great work and Alex's great work, that we have Amazon 3 massive data centers here and them building even more things here.
And I'll just reinforce that there are companies, when Mark was playing some of those videos, we have companies inside of our pipeline that we're actively working with that are considering where they're going to make investments, that are already doing some of those things or making component parts for them or sensors or things like that. So, it's already happening. It's already beginning to happen. And I will say, just as a positive note, they will have jobs. Technology is constantly disrupting jobs and taking jobs away, but it has a way of creating new ones as well. And we don't always know where they're going to come from. Sir?
Mark Allen, Editorial. I wanted to push a little bit more on this interconnectedness of things and the security issue. And I'm looking forward personally to getting rid of my cars and using driverless Uber and whatever, using driverless Coda buses. My wife is terrified of the idea, and the thing that will hold me back is this idea that somebody could hack in and send my car off a bridge. Is the technology going to be able to get ahead of that? It seems to me that now the technology is behind it, that we've done this interconnectedness and we don't have the security to do it. So isn't there the potential that we have some disaster perpetrated perhaps by another country where this whole thing is just pushed back 10 years or 20 years because we can't get ahead of the bad guys in terms of making it secure?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, it is a war. You got some really smart guys, for example, down the street at Bipedal, working on exactly that problem. How do you keep the what's called the CAN bus, which is what makes the car do what the car does, and then the digital bus that would be the driver, if you will. How do you separate them so someone couldn't take over the car and drive them? There are people thinking about that, but it's kind of like, I hate to say it, this is kind of like the privacy thing. Everyone used to ask me about privacy. There is no more privacy. I mean, just give up, okay? But because you're trading your privacy for convenience. Every single time if I search on my phone, Google Mark Kvamme, with my phone here, when I'm sitting here in Columbus, Ohio, the results are totally different than when I search Mark Kvamme on the same phone when I'm sitting in San Francisco, California. Why? Because it knows where I am, it knows what I might be interested in. It knows all those things. And so I think there's a possibility for that, but I think, if there's a mass problem and, it really creates an issue, of course, it will stifle the growth. But I think it's something we're just going to live with. And it's going to be constant. I mean, how many of you guys own a Tesla? Did anybody out there own a Tesla? What's the coolest thing about a Tesla? It was when you walk in your garage in the morning and it says, updated software, new version available. You can now do this, 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 and this. I mean, that's what's going to happen. You're going to be updating these stuff in real time. I mean, Tesla is not a car. It's a computer that happens to drive you from one place to another. And I don't know if you're looking at the new Tesla guys just shipped HW2, whatever they call it, where it's basically fully autonomous up to 45 miles an hour. And so it's coming. So I think it's going to be a push me pull you. I guess there's a threat, just like there's a threat of nuclear war. I mean, there's a threat that something like that could happen. But I'm optimistic that we'll figure it out.
Just one more question. Two more questions.
Hi, I'm Bill Lafayette, owner of Regionomics. I am giving a speech tomorrow to a community group, and I want to put smart cities in as a very small part of a much larger speech. So what are the 2 or 3 talking points that I absolutely positively have to share to get them as excited as I am and you are about all this?
That's an answer for Kenny. Question for Kenny.
Say that again. I was looking at Andy's notes.
He needs 2 declarative sentences on why smart cities is good.
I'm asking you to do my job.
Well, it is. We were just in Marysville yesterday, where we're talking about the autonomous corridor, the 35-mile corridor we're going to have between Bellefontaine, if you will, and Dublin. And we had the commissioners there, we had mayors there, and that's a group of people who've already bought in. And they've said, you know what? We have 300 acres right along 33. Our vision is to fill that with people that are attached to this industry. So companies that are inside the Internet of Things, whether they're in the automotive industry or not, that park could, in 5 years, 10 years, could be completely full of them. So if I look across our region, there won't be a single community, a single county that won't have an impact of this in their manufacturing sector, in their logistics sector, in their private services sector. It will impact job creation. It'll probably impact the quality of life really pretty radically in the community. So we're launching a big study. We're deeply involved in it. We think it's going to have a huge impact on our business of economic development, how we go about it. So it's not something for the downtown crowd or just the technology crowd. It's going to be very pervasive.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is we have the opportunity to build the Silicon Valley of AI and machine learning across all these different industries. And we have a very diverse economy. And a lot of this stuff is about moving atoms. That's an autonomous vehicle or autonomous drone. We are the logistics center of the United States. I'm now going back to my director of development. But I mean, there's a real benefit to that. And so the way I look at it is we have that opportunity. We have $140 million that hopefully we will not waste. And hopefully that then creates the catalyst to do exactly what Kenny just said, is to bring the best and the brightest here to solve the problems here, because we have an open discord and open policies to allow us to go do that. And that, I think that's the future.
So we think the consumer internet was neat, and we think the industrial internet should be placed here in the Midwest and going to be transformative to our communities.
Perfect.
Andy?
Are we any more? Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, what an amazing forum. I don't know about you all, but my mind is blown. I'm doing a lot of thinking about what's to come. We encourage you to continue the conversation with coffee and cookies. You can view and share today's forum and all of our forums on CTV, Columbus Television, on WOSU and PBS affiliates statewide through the Ohio channel, as well as through YouTube. Please help me thank our sponsors, Deloitte and Improving Enterprises, and our partner, Red One Ventures. We would also like to thank our wonderful speakers today, Mark Kvamme and Kenny McDonald, and a special thanks to all of you for being here. Have a great afternoon.